Who will the 2025 New York Jets be? That is the main question. A franchise who hasn't been to the playoffs in 15 years, a franchise who hasn't had a winning record in 10 years, and a franchise with a rookie head coach and GM. We'll get into it as we are just days away for the Jets Steelers week 1 matchup. But before we do so, welcome back to the Turn Up the Jets YouTube channel, everybody. As your host, always, Joe Skirdo. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already. Appreciate all the support. Like the video if you've actually liked it. And you could also follow me on social media platforms such as X and on Instagram. So we already know the Jets received just horrendous news this morning, and it's now official. Elijah Vera Tucker, their star guard, seems to be done for the season, as he has tore his tricep, and it's not even the tricep he tore back in 2022 against the Denver Broncos. It's the other one. I'm still not sure how that even happened, but it is official from Adam Schefter himself and multiple other reliable sources, such as Jordan Schultz, that AVT season is over before it's even started. Just one of the biggest blows I've remembered before a season has even started, and we know that's a theme that the Jets have lost tons of guys. You know, Aaron Rodgers in 2023, 4 plays in. Chuck Clark, he got hurt in mandatory mini camp before the season even started. Carl Lawson, when he signed a big deal, got hurt in joint practice against the Packers back in 2022. Like, the list goes on, but like, he made it past OTAs. He made it past mandatory minicamp. He made it past training camp when joint practices and actually playing in the preseason, and probably was one of the more impressive players throughout that entire process, according to coaches and reporters. So just a massive blow. And I think this changes a lot. No, I don't think it's going to be like they have 3 more losses now in their schedule because AVT is injured, but it's just going to change a lot in the aspect of what they do on the offensive side of the football, because this was a team that was relying on a strong running game with your 3 backs in Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and with your quarterback in Justin Fields that can create RPOs that maybe later on could add to the passing game with play action. This was your best run blocker. This was your best offensive lineman overall. So things will change. Josh Myers will be the starting center. Joe Tippmann will now be the starting right guard. And then you have Simpson at left guard, and then Fashanu at left tackle, Membu at right tackle. That will be the starting offensive line going into week 1 against a very good Pittsburgh front. It's going to be a challenge. You have a rookie right tackle going against maybe the best defensive end in the world in TJ Watt. You have Tippmann, who doesn't have a ton of games under his belt as guard. And you have a center who was really planning to be a backup suddenly in there for week 1. That's how it goes. But let's talk about the 2025 Jets. You know, and maybe this would kind of change my narrative. It definitely has an effect that AVT is gone for the season, because the offensive line is something I was really optimistic about. I think a lot of people were. The Jets really haven't had an offensive line that looked this good on paper in a long time. And we're sick about hearing something good on paper. But even when the Jets roster was good on paper in 2023, their offensive line was the biggest question mark. It's no longer the biggest question mark. I still don't think it's the biggest question mark, even without AVT. I still think this is going to be a borderline top 12 unit if it stays healthy. Like, now health is more important than ever. You have to hope that Simpson holds up. He's been battling injuries all training camp. He looks to be a go in week 1. So hopefully that stays that way, especially they need him more than ever again. But I still think this is going to be a top 12 unit. I'm still pretty optimistic there. And this is a unit they're going to ride to the ground on offense, because let's just speak the truth here. Like, their passing game is a huge question mark. It starts with the wide receiving room outside of Garrett Wilson. I've talked many times in this channel, very weak after him. The tight end room, inexperienced. I like the ad with Jelani Woods. Mason Taylor probably is going to have to exceed expectations as a rookie for this passing attack to be somewhat average. And you're going to have to involve the running backs in the passing game, because, I think automatically Breece Hall's probably your best pass catcher, your second best pass catcher behind Garrett Wilson out of the backfield. So you could see a lot of Allen, Breece Hall in the same on the field at the same time, a lot like what Ben Johnson did, where obviously Tanner Engstrom came from with the Lions, having Montgomery, that bruiser behind the backfield, having Jahmyr Gibbs, who's a Swiss Army knife, really, playing out of the slot a lot of times, being an effective pass catcher, was one of the best running backs in the league last year. So for this offense, it's a big question mark. We already know the defense. I think the defense is going to be really good. I really do. I think this is going to be a top 5 unit. I think, just looking at what they have in starting with the defensive front, the depth isn't great, but the 4 are. Quinnen Williams, Harrison Phillips, a massive addition. I think he changes so much for this defensive line, so much for this defense in general. In the outside, you have 2 young studs in Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. I don't think we can really put a lot on the Johnson, stock right now early on. I think he's going to gradually get better and better and be trusted to play more snaps. I would be not surprised at all if he's on a 2025 snap count coming off an Achilles injury. It's a brutal one, especially a guy who relies on his speed and athleticism. They did say he looked really good and rejuvenated coming back in training camp, so that's a good sign. But these 4 guys are really good. They're going to be able to create a pass rush. I'm more worried about, can they stop the run? Hopefully somebody steps up, whether it's Tufele or LT3 or one of those guys, in up the middle that can really help stop the run, along with Quinnen Williams and Harrison Phillips. In the middle, you have 2 great linebackers. Quincy Williams, only 2 years removed being an All-Pro. He had an off season last year. He struggled with tackling as bad as Sauce Gardner did. Like, his tackle rate was not very good last year. I think it was just not really a productive season for anybody, really, on this defense too. I think Quincy bounces back. Steve Wilkes is a great play caller on the defensive side. Aaron Glenn's going to have his scheme really meshed up with Wilkes. And Jamian Sherwood got his money. He got paid deservingly so. He was a top 3 tackler in the league last year. I think he got hosed. He wasn't a Pro Bowler or had no really accolade to how good he really was last year. He was the best player on this defense by a mile, in my opinion. He was effective every game. He was really good in pass coverage. He's an athletic freak, a former safety out of Auburn. I expect a lot out of Sherwood as well. The third linebacker, it's going to be up in the air. There's going to be multiple guys competing, but I'm not really too worried just because of how good both Williams and Sherwood are and can be in this upcoming season. The corner room, very deep. Sauce Gardner, Brandon Stevens. Stevens comes over from the Ravens to the Jets. A lot of people scratch their head in this move. DJ Reed, left, got the bag with Detroit. They replaced him with Stevenson, a bigger corner who likes to press receivers, but has a hard time turning around and getting after the football. That was his really downfall with Baltimore. I think he has a bad rep with the fan base, just like on the Twitter GMs, as you will. But 2 big physical corners in the outside. I like that. So does Aaron Glenn. So does Wilkes. That's what they want. They want to be physical, even their corners. I don't think Sauce can have a worse season than he did last year in terms of tackling. His coverage grades were still pretty good. They still were. I think people were just blinded more of how underperformed this Jets defense was and how bad he really was tackling, especially in the open field. But, Sauce, again, he's a 2-time All-Pro corner, a Rookie of the Year. The accolades speak for itself. I still believe he's a top 5 corner in this league. Michael Carter, I think he's another one. Michael Carter the second, not Michael Carter, the guy who used to be the running back for the Jets. We all know what I'm talking about, right? A former 5th-year pick out of Duke. He also got paid last year. A very good nickel corner. I think he's going to mesh really well. I think Isaiah Oliver is going to be a guy that they really play in the nickel as well. They have a lot of depth over there. AZ Thomas, I'm not sure when he's going to be effective on Sundays, but I certainly think he has a lot of potential. And then the safeties, I think Andre Sisco was a terrific ad, 1-year prove-it deal. This was another guy who was a really well-respected and highly touted player in his days with Jacksonville. And I've heard he's looked like an animal, and Tony Adams is going to have to be a guy to step up. And I think Malachi Moore, the 4th-round rookie out of Alabama, is going to be somebody to watch. I do think he's going to end up stealing that starting position from Tony Adams. I'm obviously rooting for Tony Adams, but I'm just calling it how I see it. Moore was an absolute menace, especially in that last week of the preseason. And this is a guy who's a 4-year Alabama guy. He was a starter. He really, when you get these SEC guys, they're built differently. And I really think Moore is one of them. And this is a guy that Aaron Glenn has absolutely raved about. So the defense, I think, is going to be really good. I'm super optimistic. And I don't even think I really need to be optimistic because I think their depth chart speaks for itself. They're going to play physical, having Wilkes and having Glenn, as I mentioned. So this defensive unit can win games. But it did that in 2022 and it did that in 2023. And guess what? They didn't win a lot. They only won 7 games each of those 2 years. Last year, they underperformed. They only won 5 games. Their offense was they're statistically better than they were the previous 2. We need just a average at best offense. And if this defense is able to do what it's expected to do, I really think you can win games based on this defense. Like, you can win games scoring 18 to 20 points. Maybe not on a weekly basis. I think you need 21 to 22 for this team to actually compete week in, week out. You can't have those stinkers. You probably will have those stinkers. Let's be honest. We always have one of those 31 to 6 defeats, and then you just sit there in the 4 o'clock window and already done with football. I think I could speak to every Jet fan that we've experienced that many times, but I do think this defense gives you confidence that they can at least compete going into the game. Like with the Steelers, for example, I think this is a winnable game because you have this defense, because the offensive line for the Steelers has multiple question marks, and because you're playing a 41-year-old, not very mobile quarterback. So very high hopes for this defense. So with the Jets, I mean, I have them winning 6 games. I think 6 or 7 is probably the right mark. I know it's 5.5 in terms of books. I think that's extremely low. They're flirting around with the Saints and the Browns. I think the Saints are going to be the worst team in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't even get to 4 wins. Never mind 5.5. But the Jets are at 5.5. I think that's slightly low. I definitely think they could go over 6 or 7. To be 8 or 9 win team, Justin Fields would have to have a career year. The offensive line would have to stay healthy, and the defense would have to be top 5. Like, those 3 things would have to happen. Like, this would have to be an offense to put up 20 plus points, at least on average. Like, they would have to put up the NFL average points for an offense, which they haven't. They have statistically had the worst offenses year in, year out, poor quarterback play. Maybe outside of last year, it was just a weird year. Rodgers had great stats, but it didn't really ultimately result in wins. But this year, Fields would have to have a breakout year. The offensive line, more than ever now, would have to stay relatively healthy, because if they do, I do think they're going to be a good unit. And the defense would have to be top 5, which I think is very possible. Like, I do think the Jets are going to be a top 5 defense. Maybe not in the first couple of weeks. They got some tough matchups. You're playing some good quarterbacks. You're starting with Rodgers, Allen, and Baker Mayfield to start the year. Like, that's not going to be easy. Luckily, 2 of those 3 are at home. I think the Jets usually on defense, too, they thrive at a good environment through the fans. Like, I feel like they play better at home. Like, it gives that defense an advantage when your crowd is on your side. So I really do think it's an advantage for the Jets to have 2 of their first 3 games that are all 3 tough matchups at home, at least. But I'm not going to sit here and say the Jets are winning 10 or 11 games. Like, this is a very unknown year, and I kind of like it. I like the 0 expectations. The Jets had expectations the last 2 years that they were going to be in the playoffs. Not only that, but win a Super Bowl. The expectations were that high. People on TV who have clowned the Jets for 15 plus years were picking the Jets to go to the Super Bowl. That's not the case anymore. There's a reason why they're 5.5. Their line is 5.5 right now with wins on FanDuel, DraftKings, all those sport books. Because people don't think they're going to be good. They have unknowns everywhere. It starts with the head coach, and then second to the quarterback. Probably the 2 most important guys to set up team success. You got the defense, but what is the offense going to look like? So that's why I lean 6 to 7. Could it be worse? Sure, it could. Jets fans should be prepared for that to be a scenario. especially what happened last year. Could it be better? Yes, but Aaron Glenn would have to be a legitimate coach, which I think there's a possibility. I'm not going to sit here and say he is because we don't know. We literally don't know. There's so much unknown to this team. There's so much unknown to the season. That's why I sit around 6-11, 7-10. And you're thinking, okay, that's going to be another year that the Jets don't make the playoffs and start to begin being clowning again that they're the longest team to have the team to have the longest playoff drought in all 4 major American sports. You've heard that stat 85 times over this just horrendous drought. But if they're coming in every week, avoid blowouts for the most part, play hard for the coach, get better every week, you could be happy. But it's hard to be happy to be a loser again. Like the Jets have been losers. Let's just say the truth here. They have been losers, and they have really put the fans and the city through the ringer. But you can look at that as a positive swing. Like, you have a rookie head coach, you have a rookie GM. You don't have the expectations this year, which sets them up pretty good, because if they start off well, like, they're going to get praised for it. But if they don't do well, it's just out of the same old Jets, which we do not want, obviously. So I'm an optimist. I've been an optimist for too long. So I'm not going to give my hopes up of this season. I'm not going to say the Jets are winning week 1. Let's just go and see it. Like, we don't know what this team is. The offense did not give us anything in the preseason. Let's be honest. Like, that's not the offense they're running. It's going to be RPOs. It's going to be screens. It's going to be runs with Justin Fields. Like, they're going to scheme him up to run the ball. They're going to use multiple backs in the backfield. They're going to try to somehow create separation with their other receivers outside of Garrett Wilson to even make them somewhat productive. They're going to utilize the tight end to be that security blanket for Fields. They're going to utilize an Andrew Beck, who is a fullback tight end hybrid. They have to get creative. And it's going to depend on what Tanner Engstrom can do. He comes from a great tree in Detroit. He started his career with Jim Harbaugh in San Diego State. He's had a lot of good mentors. It's his time. Let's see how creative he can get, because they need to get creative. That's something the Jets offense have not been in years. With Hackett, it was pathetic. I mean, honestly, with Mike LaFleur, they actually were somewhat creative. And when Zach Wilson wasn't playing, their quarterbacks were averaging, the offense with those quarterbacks were averaging 400 plus yards. And we're talking Josh Johnson and Mike White. But the Jets haven't seen that. Like, the Jets have not had creative play calls. It's just been boring. And with Rodgers, it was boring, right? It really was just a boring offense. They throw 35, 40 times a game. There was no trick plays. There was no plays designed to a specific player. They were playing backyard football, especially at the end of last season. And that's when Rodgers was doing well, but they were playing backyard football. They need a legitimate offensive scheme. They need a legitimate offensive game plan week in, week out, depending on their opponent. We got to see it. We got to see it. So my outlook is, yes, I want to be optimistic. I think there is room for optimism here, but there is also room to be like, this is just another season. We've been talking about this for months. We can't wait. I can't wait for Sunday, but let's not hold our breath. Well, let's not hold our breath. That's kind of what how I'm looking at it going into the season. Well, everybody, I appreciate you dialing in here, viewing the video. Like it if you've actually liked the video. Subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on X and on Instagram at TurnUpJets, all one word. Week 1 preview will be coming out probably either Thursday or Friday, depending on when I feel like it. I think I got to make the video after the initial injury report comes out, because it's going to look a lot different. Let's not hold our breath. Let's pray. And let's just hope that the Jets give us some competent football this year. So week 1 preview will be coming up. Recap will be next week. Appreciate all the support. Until next time, see ya.